anyways, I can probably get started.
Okay.
Kind of start showing you guys. So just as a little introduction, I'm Jessica Teague. I'm a senior in the ITGM department. I am the vice president of the GDN Club, which is the Game Development Network, which basically is a club that we do to basically connect students and alumni and get students to see like real professionals and what they do and what the industry is actually like for video games. So I'm going to be going over kind of just the very basics of Unreal with y'all. And so I can just go ahead and get started so that you guys can, see what it's like. And if you want to follow along, if you have Unreal already downloaded, it is free. So you can go ahead and follow along because, yeah, oops, don't worry about that. So first thing you want to do for when you're doing Unreal is you want to open the Epic Games Store. So I already have it open, but, just open the Epic Games Launcher. And then they'll have all these options and you want to go to the Unreal Engine tab and you want to download a version. So I have 4.27, but I also have a couple of different ones. But 4.27, I believe, is the most recent one out right now, other than UE5, but that is not something I'm going to be going into. UE5 is a whole other beast. I'm going over UE4, which is the one that people use right now. There's Caitlin. So to get started in Unreal, if you're making something for a game, you'll use the Games tab, film, television, etc. There are different group projects for what you're making, but games, it's a good starting point for what we're going over. And then you'll get a bunch of different templates. So first person flying, it really just depends on like what kind of game you want to make, and it will give you kind of the code to start with. So yeah, if you want to make a side scroller, like they already have the camera set up in the right spot, some geometry that you can practice with, etc. But I'm going to be using the first person shooter template to do the demo. So after that, you're going to have these project settings that you can mess with. For just like making a basic project, I really just leave these at default. But just to kind of go over them quickly with all of you. So for the basing like coding language or how you're going to code your game or your project, it's blueprints for C++. Blueprints are a version of C++, but it's a lot more of a visual version. Like if you've ever heard of a node editor, that's what it is. And then C++ is like more traditional like lines of code, and it's harder to use. Like I don't do C++ projects. I only use blueprinting, but you get more customization with just like being able to just like type in C++. So, you can use all these like,
oh, sorry. Yeah. I was just wondering if I can ask questions in the middle, or would you want questions towards the end?
You can ask questions in the middle if you want, but just like, like, I don't know, let me know.
Oh, yeah. I was just wondering if you can, if you choose to have a blueprint project, then can you still incorporate C++ in it?
Yeah, so that's what I was about to say, is you can actually like make like a Visual Studio file and integrate it into with C++ into the blueprinting project. So yeah, you can use both. The project settings here, you can edit like as you go, but this is just to get you started. So I always start like a blueprint. And then here you have maximum quality versus scalable 3D or 2D. Basically, this is just the quality, like, LODs, resolution, what's the word? Anti-aliasing, like that sort of thing. It's what you start with. So I always start with maximum quality. Basically, maximum quality is just like, yeah, I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the max of what your computer can kind of do. And so it just sets it up for that. And then scalable 3D or 2D is it sets it at the minimum, and then you have to go in and manually like edit everything. But if you're a beginner, I really recommend just do maximum quality. It'll work. Don't worry about it. The third option is ray tracing. So ray tracing is the fun new thing that everyone's excited about. It's the real-time lighting and reflections. It's very beautiful. It's really awesome. It's also really, 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 really expensive. And if you don't have the right computer for it, it will make your computer like explode. So basically just leave that disabled unless you know what you're doing and you want to use it. It can cause a lot of issues, but it is very beautiful and it is great for some projects. So the next is kind of what are you making your game for? So desktop/console or mobile/tablet. And then the last thing is just deciding if your project is going to be created with starter content or without starter content. For a beginner, it's great to have starter content because you'll get to see kind of basic materials, basic textures, some particle effects, some models, and that Unreal just has made for you that you can see. So that's kind of all the settings to set up. Again, as I said, you can edit these as you go, but this is just to get the project started. This is kind of normally what I do when I'm making a project, unless I'm making something super customized, and then I'll turn starter content off. But it's good to have it on for when you are just beginning. So here I'm going to, this is where you want your project to be stored. Basically, if you've ever used a program like Maya or something like that, it makes like a huge folder structure. And so you want to make sure it's somewhere that you can have like a bunch of folders. So like this is just an example. So this is my Studio 2 project. I have a lot of folders here that are unrelated, but so you'll see that I have like testing Unreal project here, and in the Unreal project there are a bunch of other folders that that the program just automatically generates. So you need to make sure you're ready to like have all these folders. So I'm just going to put it on the desktop just for the presentation. Normally I would put it on my hard drive or whatever, like wherever I'm working, but for a presentation, desktop is just fine. Wow, I spelled presentation wrong. So then you want to name your folder. So this is just naming your top level folder, and then all the other things inside will be automatically named by Unreal. So make sure that you create your project, and then you wait for it to make. So this is just the basic, when you use the first person blueprint or the first person project settings, this is what it comes up with. So this is sort of just like the test room that they've set up for you for the template. And just to showcase again the file structure, because it can get a little odd. Oops, wrong place. So we have here just all these files. So whenever you import something into Unreal, which is about to show you, it'll normally go in the content folder. But something you have to keep in mind is when you import something into Unreal, it will automatically be converted to a UA asset file, which means if you try to take it out of this folder, it will not work. So here, let me just import something just to showcase kind of that process of importing assets. So this is the content browser. Yeah, really quick, let me actually go over what's happening on the screen here. Sorry, getting ahead of myself. When you're in something for so long, you're like, oh yeah, this all makes sense. But no, it's, again, yeah, let me go over what's happening on the screen before I go into bringing things in here. So for the content browser, this is this thing right here at the bottom. This is basically everything that's in your project that you have imported and you can use. So like, we have from the starter content, some cubes, some floor, etc. And then over here on the left, we have place actors. These are just basic actors that Unreal has for you. Very useful. So, you'll see like things that you've recently placed. So like if I place this, it'll come up and then I can just do it again, place it again. And then you have in your basics, just basic shapes or things, so we have an empty character, lights, cubes, spheres, etc. We have lights, which I'll go over in more depth later. Some cinematic things. It gets more complicated as we kind of go along the line here. Like these visual effects things, very useful, but again, would take probably a while to explain. I can go over them later if you guys want, but for now, I'll just kind of, this is the place actors menu. This top bar, most of this for, it's just kind of like your basic settings and such. So save your file. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about this. I really don't use actually so these 4 things, unless you're making like a game, you don't need to worry about these. This is only if you're making a game with other people. This is for very complicated things. And then these 2 I don't use. So this is just for your settings. So if you want to change, like let's say you're like, okay, I actually don't want to use blueprints. I just want to use C++ code. You would go in here and your project settings and set it up. This is blueprints, but I would not recommend using this tab for actually setting up blueprints. Cinematics, don't worry about. And then this is for building, lighting, and again, this is a more complicated things that would probably be better explained with more time. So on the right here, we have the world outliner. Basically, you can imagine this is like your Photoshop file. You know how in the Photoshop file you have layers? It's basically that. So it's just everything that's in the level you can look at and be like, okay, where is wall 1? Okay, there's wall 1. And then you can look at it and edit it. So when you click on something, you get the details panel, which basically shows you all the details of whatever you're clicking on. So this box, you know, you see it's at this location, it's at this rotation. So if I rotate it, it will change, scale, etc. What is here? This is the static mesh. So what is it? So I actually want it to be the sphere. Okay, now I've switched it out for the sphere, back to the cube. What material is on it? And then a bunch of other things that gets complicated. So like physics and collision and game things. But like just to very quickly, physics, you know, it's like, does it, if you hit it, does it move? That's what physics is. I mean, you know, in real life, physics. Collision is, if you hit it, do you touch it? Or if you hit it, do you go through it? So, you know, collision, no collision. The rest of that, don't be concerned. Don't worry about everything else. So to move in Unreal, so you use the right click to kind of look around. Left click, you can go backwards and forwards. Would not recommend moving around Unreal in that way though. That's really complicated. Yeah, right click is looking around. You can scroll in and out with the scroll wheel. And then you can actually use WASD to basically fly the camera around. Like you're kind of in a video game almost. Like for some reason, the example that comes to my mind is like in Minecraft, when you're in creative mode, you can kind of fly around. It's like that. So this is normally the most this is the way I use Unreal to move around. It's a lot easier to fly around with WASD than it is to kind of like try and do it with the mouse. The mouse, it can get really tough. And also when you have really huge scenes, like being able to just zip around is the best. So if you're flying around and you want to speed up, like let's say I'm not going fast enough, while holding the right mouse button, if you scroll in on the mouse wheel, you'll go a lot faster. That like speeds you up. And if you want to go slower, if you scroll down on the mouse wheel, then you'll go slower. So it's really good for just being like, okay, I want to get really close and I want to get really detailed in this corner right here. So, you know, that's kind of the basic getting around. And then if you want to focus on a specific object, you will click on it and then press F and it would focus in the camera. And then, okay, I'm just making sure I have like some notes. I want to make sure I'm like hitting everything. So that's the movement. So if you want to play your game, you click play. And then in the first person blueprint, it's kind of already set up so you can walk around. And if you press left click, you can shoot. And then because these are all physics assets, you know, they react accordingly to being shot with a gun. And that's not a physics asset, so it doesn't. So, you know, it stops it. And the bullets are crazy. So, you know, kind of, you can walk around, shoot things, whatever you want to do. So now I'm going to quickly go over, I keep saying quickly, I'm going to go over kind of scaling, moving, and rotating assets. So you can bring something in, like I just brought in this cube. And if you want to move it, whoops, sorry. You can press W on the keyboard and it will bring you the movement pivot. So I can move it up by pulling up, right, left, and then forward and back. If you want to be really precise, you can also punch in numbers here. But for getting something like generally blocked out, this is going to be easier than having to think about like, okay, if I do it -500 and then, you know, whatever. That's really good for just like precision things. If you want to scale it, you press R. And then you can pull it on each axis, so, scaling it vertically, horizontally, or I guess depth. Yeah, depth. If you want to scale it all at once, you would hover over the middle square, and then it scales all relative to each other. And then this is the same, in here. And then if you want to rotate it, you would press E, and then you get the rotation pivot. Kind of the same thing, rotating the different axes. And then again, with the numbers. If you want, so if you look close, you can see I'm right now I'm rotating in variables of 10. And if you're doing something, you're like, okay, actually, I want to rotate in variables of something else, then you can click here, this right up here, you can control it. So now I've clicked 30, so now I will rotate in variables of 30. And this is the same for all of them. So if you want to move them in 50, 5,000, let's zoom out a little bit. Whatever, it's very customizable. And then if you're thinking like, okay, well, I don't want it to be locked at all. Like, I don't want to be locked on a grid for moving my stuff around. I want to be able to just be like freeform place it, not have to worry about the grid. Then you can just click this right here. If it's orange, it's on. If it's gray, it's off. And then you can move it however you please. You don't need to be worried about the grid system. And this is the same for scale as well. If you don't like the keyboard, you can click the different rotates, scale, and movement right up here. I like the keyboard though, I think it's faster. And then this is also camera speed. So you can edit it right here. But again, I think the kind of doing it with the mouse is easier. And then, okay, so just to kind of showcase. So I've made this little cube and it's beautiful. So yeah, so now it's in the world and I can interact with it and it can impact the world. Sorry, I don't know how that bounced where it fell vertically. Sorry, I saw someone had a question. Is there a way to make the shape a particular dimension in terms of inches and feet? So Unreal, the units are they're in meters, but you can switch into feet or inches, depending on what you need. And if you want it to be like really specific, then yeah, you can type in these numbers here. Like I want this cube to, be 5 in X, 1 in Y, and 3 in Z. Then you can have it be very specific. If you're going for a little bit more freeform, then this works just fine. But yes, you can use the transform menu over in the details panel to get very specific numbers in. Yeah, okay. So let's get to a little bit more fun, complicated things. So I'm going to delete the cube. Okay. So I'm going to make a material so you guys can see that. So yeah, right clicking can also pull up this add import menu. Then you have all these options, but these right here are the most basic things. So for creating material, you click material, you give it a name. And then, so these materials are what go on your objects. If you're not aware of like what a material is, like that's all right. So it's basically what you use to color this object. So right now you see that this material, this cube makes it white. If we just throw the material I just made onto it, which basically you would grab it and drag it on is a way, then now you can see it's just the grid because it doesn't have a material right now. You can also select materials in the details panel. So I just selected some random material for that. And now it's this concrete. We can use my test material. So pull it up. So this is a node editor, which basically means you just build code with squares and with things that it already, like Unreal has a bunch of presets that you can use. And so also material. So Unreal is physically based rendering. So basically it renders things kind of in a more realistic leaning way. So all these options are things that like things in real life have. So, your base color, is just like, the color of that something else. Like if you have this notebook that I'm holding, and of course I picked up something black, and my shirt is black. If you have this candle, which is not black, then, the base color of this label would be blue. And then, blue and white and all the little designs it has. And then metallic is how shiny something is, or how, metal something is. So this can, which is black, is, has some shine on it, so it's metally. I can also show you guys actually an image, and that'd probably be easier. And with a real object I'm holding in my hands. So, we want this circle to be pink. Perfect. Okay, now it's pink. Now I want it to be a metal circle. Now it has a metallic value. So it's very shiny. So metallic values only go from 0 to 1. You don't, like, if you get past 1, that it's not changing anything. Like 1 is the max. And then specular is very similar to metallic, but it's basically, like how shiny something is. There are a lot of how shiny something is values, but it's in different ways. So metallic, is something that's metal. Specular plays into that as well. Roughness is basically how much does something take light. So if something is super rough, then it doesn't take any light at all. Think like, there really aren't many things in real life that have a true 1 roughness, but, if you think of something that's really porous, that probably has a lower roughness. So we've made a little chrome ball. So like a mirror has a 0 roughness because it takes light, but something like a shirt, which isn't shiny, would be closer to the 1 roughness, if that makes sense. It takes some time to kind of understand roughness and metallic. They're a little odd. But yeah, so now this has a 0 roughness and a 0 metallic. So it's basically like really, really, really clean plastic. Because plastic, has no metal, but it's very shiny. So that would be, kind of 0 roughness, 0 metallic. And yeah, metallic and roughness are switched. So a 1 metallic is maximum metallic, but maximum shiny, and a 1 roughness is no shiny. So you have to think of them kind of in opposites. So this is the shiniest you can be, is a 1 metallic and a 0 roughness. A emissive color is basically if the thing glows, what color does it glow in? So now we have a glowing yellow ball. And then a normal is basically, how to explain a normal map. It's basically when you think of, it's like surface changes in an object that wouldn't be modeled in. So like really subtle things. Like on this shirt, you can't see it because it's black, but I have like a ribbing on it. So the ribbing would be in the normal. You wouldn't bother actually modeling that in. And then the other stuff, don't be concerned. Don't be concerned about everything else below normal. So I will make a basic material for you guys. So we'll just use these 3 values. And then with these, you can make something called a material instance. So with a basic material, like, let's say, I save it, you have to save it. So I have it on this cube, right? And it's like, okay, like, I want the cube, I want this cube to be blue. So I'd have to open it back up, go in here and go, okay, all right, now it's blue, okay? Now it's done. It's a beautiful, beautiful cube, beautiful blue cube. But you can make something called a material instance, which is easier on the performance than a regular material, and you can edit it in its own editor. So I'm going to show you. So what you would need to make a material instance is you need to make everything that you want to edit a parameter. So you can right click your nodes and convert to parameter. Also, I'm just realizing, I think I didn't tell you guys actually how to get these nodes. I think I just did it. So you can right click and type it in, which, wow, I don't ever do, obviously, so I'm kind of forgetting what it's actually called. But what I do for these basic ones is you can press 3 on the keyboard and you'll get a color or a 3 vector. you can press 2 and you'll get a 2 vector, which are really good for direction. And then you get a 1, which is a 1 vector, which are really good for things like metallic and roughness. I apologize for not doing that before. Again, it was just kind of like, la, 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 la. Not even thinking about it. But yeah, so if you want this one, you would press 3. When I have these two, you press 1. And so if you want to make it something that's editable, you can right click it and click convert to parameter. And so now it's something that can be edited in a material instance. So let's say in this color, you got to give it a name so you understand what's going on. And you can convert these as well. Metallic and roughness. So then you have some default values here. So when you want to just, on default, when the material instance is made, we'll leave these as they are, and then you can put max and mins. And then also if you want to make actually a scalar parameter just from the start, you can press S and then hold down S as you click, and that will make a little parameter. We're not using that one though. So you've made your material, all these objects are scalar parameters. It's perfect, they're editable. So then what you would do is you would click on this and you click right click, material instance. And then you would have your instance here, and you would want to put the instance on the object instead of your regular one. So, obviously at the start, the object looks the same, but you have this menu, which is the material instance menu. And you can edit your values just in here, and it's in real time. So then you don't have to worry about just guessing the numbers. You can actually see like, okay, like this is what like this value of metallic looks like this is what this value of roughness looks like. It's a lot more where you can get a lot more customized and less kind of guessing numbers. You can actually see it happening. So material instances are very helpful. And then, yeah, if you want to change the color, now I want it to be green. Perfect. I love my little green metallic plasticky ball who turns into a cube. So that's kind of the basics with materials. I went through this kind of quick. So, if I miss something, let me know, ask me. Willing to answer questions about all materials. But I can also move forward into lights. So when you make a basic level, it will come in with 2 lights. It'll come with a directional light, and it will come in with a skylight. So a directional light, which is this guy right here, imagine the directional light is the sun. It is a light that comes from an infinite distance away, and it lights up the entire level, and it lights up infinitely. So, it's the sun. And then the skylight is kind of like an ambient light that just kind of lights up the entire scene, makes it a little bit brighter. So if we make the intensity 0 on our skylight, things are just a little darker. The black values are a little higher. And then, back to 1, it's a little bit more realistic. So, if we edit our skylight, now it's dark. And also these lights are baked in. And so we're not going to see like exact results right now. With some lights, you have to kind of edit them and make it so. One second. With lights, there are 3 types. There are static, stationary, and movable lights. So static lights are lights that will look the best, but they have to be baked into your game. So the lighting will not be real time. It'll be baked in like a movie, kind of like the lighting will just be like done. It'll be ready for you. And that's great for most cases. When you have something that, you need to move around, it can cause some issues because it won't cause shadows with the baked lights. But normally you use a lot of static lights and a lot of stationary. Stationary lights are the highest performance because they're kind of a mixture of static and movable, where things can move and change, but it also is pretty. So those lights are very high performance wise. And then movable lights are basically real-time lights. So you don't need to bake it, but it looks worse And but things can move and shadows will change, and it's better for that sort of thing. But so yeah, so if you see me like edit this and it's like, all right, well, this is 0 intensity, it's still not that dark. It's because the lighting has been baked in. So it, it makes it where it's naturally lit up. If you were to rebake it, it would be dark, but I'm not going to do that because it takes a minute. But just to kind of go over all the lights. So the directional light is the sun. A point light is like a light bulb. It's a little icon that's perfect for that. It's exactly like a light bulb. It creates light in a 360-degree radius all around it. And then, so you can make the intensity really high. And then you would light up everything that's in its radius just to really show up what it's doing. We can make it red. And then, you know, you can make the radius larger, smaller, all kinds of things. Point lights are great. These are spotlights. So again, a lot of these names are pretty intuitive. Think of like a spotlight, like on a play. These are also great, especially if you want to have like an interior scene. I would mainly use spotlights and point lights. And these are great because they direct light in one direction. So performance-wise, these are one of the best. And point lights are one of the worst because it directs light in the 360-degree. Sorry about that. So a rectangle light, again, you know, projects light in a rectangle. So you can change the size of your rectangle like this, or, you know, different barn door things, changing the source. And then our skylight, which is the ambient light I talked about earlier. So when you're using a light, you can edit things in the detail panel. So like the intensity, if you want it to be really bright. And then you can change the color, you know, ooh, blue or whatever. And then the attenuation radius makes it kind of affect a larger area or like longer. For the spotlight specifically, you can change the cone angle. And then temperature is, you know, kind of the temperature light. So if you want a really hot light, you want a really cold light, this is another way to do color of the light, but it will be a little bit more realistic for things like the sun or things that would have a temperature. And then for your light colors, you would do things like I don't know, like a light in a club where you want it to be like pink. That's kind of the basics on lights. So I'm now going to go over blueprinting, which is kind of the scary one. I mean, I'm sure a lot of this it's a lot. If it makes you feel better, it took me like 2 years to truly get an understanding of Unreal. It takes a while. My first few projects in here were questionable, I think, at best. But so we're going to edit the projectile so I can show you sort of the basic blueprinting system. So this is what a blueprint looks like. Don't be freaked out. You know, just basically code split up into different squares. So this code is just saying, whenever one of your projectiles hits something, check if it's a physics object. If it is a physics object, push the physics object. And then destroy the projectile. So that is a physics object. So it moves it around. That's all that code is doing. And so I'm going to, so if you want to, like, if you're shooting this gun, you're like, okay, actually, I want to shoot squares. Or I want to shoot cubes. Then you can bring in a cube by clicking add component and typing it in. And then if you want the cube to take the place of the sphere, you can make the cube a child of that. And then I'm going to make it a little bit smaller just so we can see it. Oops. So now it's a child of the sphere. So when I shoot cubes instead of spheres. So there's that. Now I'm going to delete it because it's not necessary. So, you know, just another way to kind of see how the code is working. So I'm going to delete all this. So now whenever we hit something, we are going to have it instead where it just tells us what you're hitting with the sphere. So what I've done here is I've pulled out a print string, which, you know, just kind of, it puts some text in the top to show what's happening. And then I've gotten the other, which is the other object. So like when you hit something, what is the sphere hitting? It's the other. And it's getting the name of that other object and printing it for us to see. So, you know, I shoot, okay, I'm hitting the floor, because now it's just on the floor. You know, I hit a wall, I hit a cube, floor, and now, you know, floor. That's what that's doing. So now we're going to get a little bit spicier. And I am going to make a new blueprint for you. Let me get in here. Okay, I'm gonna make a new blueprint. So right click, blueprint class. I'm gonna do an actor. I'm going to call it color. Basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna have it where whenever I shoot and I hit a cube, not this cube, but a cube I'm gonna put in here, it will change the color of the cube. So I'm gonna make a cube, put it in here, and I'm gonna use that material I made earlier and put it on the cube. I'd find it. So, sorry, clicking on the zoom thing. Okay, so we're gonna take my blueprint I just made, put it in the level. Here's our cube. And we're gonna delete that one so it doesn't get confusing. And so in this, I'm going to do a little bit of coding. So we're going to create a dynamic material instance for the cube. So I just typed that code in, just search it up by pressing, you know, right click and typing it in. So, you know, if I wanted a branch, just type in branch. You know, you just search it up. So I want to make a dynamic material instance, which basically just creates a new material instance of the material I made earlier for the coded cube in here. And so I'm going to figure out what my cube was, what that material was called. And I'm going to type it in. There we go. And then I am going to promote the output here into material. So basically this is my new material. This right here, what I've just created, is the new material that the code is making. That's all this is doing. It's just making a new material based on this one that has the same parameters as my other one. So, you know, metallic, roughness, and color. So now I'm going to make something called a custom event, which basically is just something you call to kind of do gameplay. So like here we have like event begin play. So whenever the game begins, it just does this at the beginning. Overlap, I have to begin overlap when something overlaps on it. Event tick happens every frame. So this custom event is only going to happen when I call it. So I'm going to call it change material. And then I'm going to do set vector parameter value. And then I'm going to get my material, plug it in. Probably better to just call it from here. Sometimes it gets fussy, and so you need to just grab what you're making it for and drag it out of here and just type in the node here, because it can get very odd for some reason. So we're just going to change the color. I need to check what I named that parameter. I called it color. Cool. I can remember if I called it color, if I called it base color. And so the new value, I'm going to make it where it changes into pink. So, sorry. So there's construction outside my house and that sound is very odd. Okay. So now this code in here is done. And I'm going to go back into the projectile so that when the object gets hit, it changes the color. So what I'm going to, so to do that, I need to, in the projectile code, I need to access the cube's code. So I'm going to do something called a cast. I'm going to cast to BP change color. I'm going to make it the other object. So this is casting. So this is checking. Are you hitting the cube? Yes. So when you hit the cube, I'll do change material event and change the material. So now when I shoot this cube, if I've done this all correctly, it should change to pink. So just kind of the basic code showcase. Yeah, so that's everything I have to show you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I know I went through stuff really fast, and I know it's a lot, but these are just, you know, kind of the basics, showing just the basic of everything. So basic blueprints, basic lights, basic setting, etc. So if you have any questions, yeah, go ahead. I'm just hanging out.
I'm just like, and this is probably asking a question that's for way, way, way far ahead. But how do you start then, like right now we're kind of playing with basic cubes and environments and such. How do you start importing or building like larger scale environments, more detailed environments, stuff like that?
Yeah, here. So I can show you how to like import like a custom mesh.
Okay. Yeah.
So basically what you would do if you want to make something like, I'm trying to think of a mesh I have on hand.
Mm-hmm.
I'll find one, but let's say you want to make a chair. You would make your chair in a different program. So something like Maya or Houdini, and you would make sure it's all ready to go into Unreal, which is a whole other thing. And then to bring it actually into Unreal, you would import it. So let me find something for you guys that I have. Just let me think. Models, where's my models? Okay, here we go. So this is perfect. I can show you guys this guy. So this is for my studio. So this is for my senior thesis, this project. So you would import, you click import, and then you pick your file. And then you would choose, how does it come in? Does it come in with translation? Does it come with rotation? Does it come in scaled in a different way? Does it need a skeletal mesh? For this one, we're just going to do basic, not changing any settings, just import. You can ignore most things that come up with that. Oh God. And so this guy came in a lot of pieces. They don't have to come in a lot of pieces, but they can, like this one, which I forgot that it did. So this is just a toaster enemy that we have for the game I'm working on right now. So he came in all these pieces so that, it's for the game, so he can be edited, but I can import something else so you can see it like not come in a bajillion pieces. I'm trying to, they might be easier just to get out of a different. Okay, this is perfect. All right. So I just imported some new models because the toaster is fun, but kind of scary looking just because he came in a bunch of pieces. If you don't prep it to come in a bunch of pieces, it won't. So this is prepped to come in all in one piece. So it's cute. I mean, it's a box. So you would bring your model in, and then, yeah, you would just start setting up your scene. So, all right, I want this cube here, and I want this tube here, and then I want this piece of toast right here. And this is my final project. It's beautiful. I hope you guys love it. Thank you. Yes, thank you for the claps. So yeah, and then you would bring in your materials as well. So if you'd like, I can show you kind of like bringing in like textures as well. So I made, oh, did you have a question?
Oh yeah, no, I was gonna say, like you said, materials, but then I realized you weren't finished. Can we try putting like a wood or something on that? It feels like it might look good in a wood.
Yeah, I can put, something on this. Yeah, I can actually show you, I can import the textures that it has in like the game I actually used it in.
Okay.
And then you can see importing texture maps as well. That just means I have to find its textures though. So give me one sec. Art textures. Isn't that nice that I actually name these files? Okay. Don't worry about all these other files I've got going on here. But basically you would just go into wherever you have your pictures, you grab them all and you bring them in. So these maps are optimized. So I'm not going to go into texture optimization. It's a little much, but so basically you pull up your material, throw it on your dude, and then you would throw it on your images. And if you have something called a UV set up, then they would set up all perfectly and in pretty ways. But also, so let's see, I can pull up a, if you want it, you're like, okay, like, sure, that looks cool, but actually, I'll get to your question in a second, Elma. Actually, I want this guy to actually, have all this nonsense going on. So you can search for different pictures that are in, so different texture maps, and then you just apply and you're like, perfect. This is what I want it to look like. So yeah, it's just different texture maps depending on what you need. I don't know if there's actually a wood in here. I think there's a brick. Yeah. So now we have a brick tube.
Nice.
So, and depending on your UV maps, which are like kind of what defines like how the model is that takes texture, it depends on how it lays out. So Elma asked, what if I want to animate something? Oh, Elma, that's a lot of work. So you can do animations in a couple ways on Unreal. A lot of times it's best to import animations. So let me find the first person character. So you can see that he has a bunch of different animation sequences that have been imported. So basically you would make it like in like Maya, and you'd animate it there, and then you import it and then use it in a blueprint. You can also animate things in like coding it, but I'm not going to go there because it takes a while and it's kind of troublesome. But really for animating, you would kind of bring it in from a different program, and then you would set it up in Unreal to use. So it's a little, the customization of animation in Unreal is complex. That's a high level skill question. But you never watch tutorials on it. I've done it before, so yeah. Oh, punching my mouse. Yeah. You got any questions?
All the questions from me.
Well,
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let's see. I know there's a workshop on UI and Unreal.
Yeah.
But
yes,
and obviously like that's a whole other thing, because there is a whole other workshop. But oh god, I just forgot my question. I'm so sorry. It was something related to that.
It's okay.
I apologize.
Yeah, well, Julian, the president of the GDN, will be doing the talk on UI and Unreal, and I'm sure he can answer whatever questions you have there. Because yes, they are.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I was in the middle of asking it and I completely forgot it. But thank you. I really appreciated this. This whole walkthrough.
Here's my last slide. So if you guys would want to join the SCAD GDN, or if you guys have any questions for me, there's my SCAD email. You can hit me up, or you can join the Discord. And yeah, and then those are some more questions.
If you guys need any of what we talked about, all of the resources will be uploaded onto the SCAD Startup Sessions page for this workshop. So you can just access it on there. Thank you so much for the workshop. It was really informative, really fun. Had some good insights from there. Thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, in that case, I think we can all log off. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. Bye.